Ms. Rogers?
Here.
Ms. Teets?
Here.
Mr. Wodiska?
Here.
Mr. Lofterson and Mr. Meeks are absent at this time.
Okay. Can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our agenda is adopted. Do we have any planning commissioner reports? No? Look, seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the receipt of petitions. Do we have any comments or any letters that came in on issues not on the agenda today? Thank you. And the planning director's report then. Mr. Snyder?
You have in front of you some code changes, and I'll explain those later when we get to that topic. We are looking ahead toward the small area plan. Working with Ms. G, we've identified February 21st as a time we hope we could do a work session with the commission to talk about some of the details of the plan, get your feedback and input. The intent is to try to take a draft plan to a work session with the City Council in early March, where it would then get a chance to have more review and ultimately determine a timetable for consideration and formal adoption. Again, the plan would be a guide. We're working on the draft, doing some editing, adding some things. I'm going to give an update tomorrow to the Economic Development, the EDA, who is interested in knowing more about it. I'm putting together a PowerPoint. We won't be giving them a full copy of the plan, but just giving them some highlights, and I will forward that to you all so that you all have a copy of it. And it includes many things we've talked about before of looking for changes to the industrial zones and some of the other zones to get the proper zoning in place to encourage development in the area that is nearest to the metro, bounded by Columbia, Maple, and Washington. So look forward to getting your comments and thoughts as when we have our work session. And again, we're working on the draft, and we hope to have a draft that we can share, including some comments from you all with the council in early March. We're also exploring a session to talk with the community about the possible changes in Greenway Downs. And Deborah, help me with the timing on that. We were looking for a time to meet at the school.
We were looking at the week of April 23rd, but we've not been able to confirm a facility yet.
Right. So the thought there is to be able to have something that could take place before school's out, but after spring break. We will be trying to get together a little committee of some of the commissioners and local folks who you've mentioned who would be interested in helping facilitate that. We've done some more analysis looking at side yards of all of the properties, and there are probably more than 100 where the existing building doesn't conform with the side yard requirements in the zone, and that's one of the changes that's being suggested in the draft language that we shared with you all, was flexibility on side yards. So we're continuing to work on that. Also looking at the small area plan, the second small area plan. I think we're looking at May to try to see if we can set something up for the South Washington Street area. The hope being we can finish the first small area plan and be able to then have time to organize the second one to talk about the South Washington Street area. So those are some of the things we're working on. And we also are trying to make progress on the comprehensive plan chapters, and we'll try to bring some of those to you at future work sessions. Thank you.
Ms. Hockenberry?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the timeliness of the South Washington Street plan. Is that going to be soon so we can get our ideas out before anything might happen or anything?
We're trying to finish North Washington Street. We have done some thinking about South Washington Street, and so I think when we have that kickoff meeting, we can have some ideas that we can present to people. If you like, I could have a more focused presentation on some of our thoughts in that area. There are some parcels that are at play or possibly looking at redevelopment in that area.
I think it might be a good idea to at least get some thoughts out, so that we don't look like we're reacting retroactively to anything going on.
One of the things we have talked about is could Tinner Hill Road between Maple and Route 29 Lee Highway become a street that has a restaurant, retail, focal aspect?
And a festival
and
street.
A festival type of street that would begin to link the area of Pearson Square and some of the retail there with activity that could be happening in the future on Lee Highway and the Tinner Hill neighborhood itself. So that is one of the ideas, and looking at that triangle as an area that would have be a better gateway to the city, because presently it's in fragmented ownership and buildings and businesses in a variety of condition. One thing I will mention, we did have a meeting with Shelley Maestrin, who is going to be conducting a studio class with a small group of Virginia Tech students, and I believe they're going to take as a project this spring a look at the commercial strip of South Washington Street between the stream Trips Run to the city line and the Fairfax side and the city side. It's a good teaching opportunity because you're going to look at two different jurisdictions, two different zoning and land use approaches, and the thought would be to see if they can come up with some ideas and guidance as to what exists there and what could be better there. So we think that we thought that would be a good project for students to look at because of the multiple jurisdictions between Fairfax, Falls Church, and VDOT. And of course, we're doing some ongoing work there looking at the streets and design of 29.
When are we going to be seeing any of those plans for the multimodal?
In talking last week with Wendy Block Sanford, I think we don't have a firm date, but we hope to do it at the same time or in the same time frame as the kickoff meeting for the South Washington Street area. And I think we're looking at May, I believe.
Okay. I just really want to get our ideas out there so we don't look like we're backing into something.
Appreciate that.
that
area, okay? Thank you.
Well, I know we have some sketches of the area related to some of the transportation issues we were looking at, so, and we also have the sketches that were done for the housing court building that they were looking at putting in, so maybe some of that stuff could be utilized as stuff that we've already put together, plus the design guidelines, obviously.
And if you all would like, and we have time, the difficulty is there's a lot on your,
Right.
there are a lot of things you're trying to do, but we could have possibly a short discussion session or a short work session brainstorming about what could be done there. I could share some ideas with you in advance of a public meeting.
I think it'd be a good idea because we're, dealing with, you've got Pearson Square and you've got the tax analyst building already there, and, just what we'd like to see going on up the other side. You've got a couple of buildings already purchased with, with the Quinn's auction house there, and so not much will be moving there, but just particularly I think your ideas with the Tinner Hill being, a possible festival street or, with the restaurants, all that whole idea, just to verbalize it and have it out there.
I think we all have a general concept of what we want it
Right.
to look like, so maybe we could put together just a concept, 1-page or 2-page or concept piece.
Be happy to see if we can
Yeah.
do something like that. I spent part of last Friday just walking the area up and down and looking at all the various areas and spent some time talking with the people at the art space. I think one of the critical things here is whatever development occurs nearby, how can that interact in a positive way and help us with the expansion of our cultural area and help make that area a growing, successful incubator for the arts and a draw for the city and the city's residents.
And another water feature. More gondolas.
Oh, we need more water features. I will
We do
say.
have water there.
I know.
We were down there this past Friday night for dinner, and at least Pizzeria Orso was packed. And it took us about 35 minutes to get a table. So a lot of people walking around, a lot of people, seeing people walk to Elevation Burger, walking to Orso, lots of walking, and some more development down there would really help. get that place moving. Now, I've been by Northgate, they look like they're moving around again and doing things. How are we doing on the hotel in terms of movement there?
The hotel is, they're, I think, working towards their closing. My understanding was they had worked out their issues with their bids. My understanding was they definitely planned to go ahead, but it was taking them some time to work out the details of financing. So we'll keep you posted on that, but every indication is it's going forward. So as soon as we know for sure, I'll let you know for sure, but our conversations with them have been positive.
Yeah, I've seen, like, BBT has the Chicken Out building down, they're working. 20
It's all squared away.
Yeah, and 20 Hour Fitness is also starting to do quite a bit of work on their site, and they have all the tree protection up, which is great to see. There's a lot of good trees on that
You said
site.
Dominion?
I don't know about Dominion, I haven't seen anything there.
They were deconstructing a little bit last week.
Okay, so
I
that's
think
another
our
one.
fire department may be doing, they may be giving permission for our fire department to do some internal training in that building. It would involve
Just hope they do all
internal,
the
internal work, not,
rodent
you know.
control before they do anything.
Wow,
But that does appear to be going forward as well, so.
okay, so there's some development going on right now, that's good. Any other questions for Mr. Snyder? No? Okay, so we're going to move on to old business, the FY 13-17 Capital Improvements Program, all funds, general fund, school fund, and utilities fund. So I just see Ms. Mester's not here yet, so I guess we're not going to have any presentation tonight because we had one in the previous public meeting.
That is correct. She has updated information to share with you during the work session following tonight's meeting.
Okay. Did we have any public comment come in or any speaker slips on the public meeting part of it?
I have none.
I don't know if anyone has any questions that Mr. Snyder could answer. I'm assuming not. Okay, so we're going to open the public meeting. Seeing that we don't have any speaker slips or any comments in at this point, can I get a motion to continue the public meeting to February 21st, 2012?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I so move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we just do that on voice vote? Right. All those in favor?
Yeah, aye.
Any opposed? So we're going to continue the public meeting for the FY 13-17 Capital Improvements Program to February 21st. We do have a work session tonight. Anyone from the public is welcome to come after our meeting and sit in on the work session. And that'll be on the general fund, school fund, and utilities fund.
No.
Okay. No, you're right. I'm sorry, that is on the environment, transportation, general government facilities. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, I was like, no, wait, we already did those. Okay, so we're going to move on to new business. An ordinance to amend Chapter 6, Buildings, Chapter 14, Environment, create Chapter 33, Property Maintenance, and amend Chapter 48, Zoning, to provide for a property maintenance code of Falls Church with civil penalties. This is TO 11-23. And I guess, Mr. Snyder, will you have some comments for us?
Yes, first I want to thank the Commission for your work on this. We've looked at this and talked about it for a number of months, and this has been a collaborative and iterative process. We've gotten comments from you all. We've gotten comments from boards and commissions. We've incorporated some comments from the AAB who are concerned about not having so strict of a standard for painting and maintenance that it became a problem, but so we've incorporated those. The BZA had a number of suggestions that we went through with the city attorney and made changes. Some of them have to do with form in terms of where things are placed. Fences were moved. We had some changes to fences, which were moved back into the zoning ordinance with a maintenance provision left in the new code. So if you look at line 306 on page 8, you'll see the portion that remains in the maintenance code that they should be prime painted, stained, sealed, treated, and maintained, prevent deterioration. But the portion relating to heights has been moved into the zoning ordinance itself, and that is now on page 12, where it is shown in red. The one change there that fine-tuning that happened today was removing the reference to the planning commission's ability as part of a site plan review to approve a greater fence height. Because of some court cases and opinions, it's felt that probably is not something the commission can do. I would note, though, that the ability to have retaining walls and topographic features combined with a 7-foot fence will solve most of the problems that this was designed to do. We talked about the BJ's case and some others where having some additional height would be helpful. So I don't think it's a problem. It won't be a problem for the, in reality, as we deal with site plans at the commission. We've also made a change to the fines section referencing the state code, which has its own schedule of fines. This is on page 11, lines 438, 439, and lines 441, 442, where we are referencing Virginia Code section 15.2-901, which sets a schedule for fines for removal of trash, cutting of grass, and weeds. Again, this will be consistent with Virginia Code. I think at present the code has a $50 initial fine, and then it goes up from there. So, wanting to be consistent with that and not have a different set, this has been added. But the main point, I think, is illustrated in some of the photographs we shared with you at the dais, where we do have real problems here in the city of properties that need encouragement to be cleaned up. And this code, with a warning notice and with the ability to provide fines rather than civil penalties, rather than calling something a misdemeanor, will help us, we think, solve these problems. Our objective is not to collect fines for the city, but to encourage people to clean up their properties and give our inspectors the tools to solve problem cases. We're looking for adoption, and then effective date of this would be Monday, April 2nd, 2012. This will give us time to be ready and make sure that we're prepared to move forward with this and enforce and administer it. So with that, I would urge the Commission to consider this ordinance and recommend it along with your comments to the City Council. They will be considering this next Monday at second reading, and we look forward to their thoughts as well. I'm open for any questions that you all may have about the particulars of the code.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Snyder? Ms. Rogers?
On page 6, notification and fines.
Yes.
You're saying notice will be given by first-class mail or posting of the property. I think you should say certified mail. And posting of the property.
Actually, I had a question. What is posting of the property? Meaning just sticking something on the door?
It would be probably placing it on the door on the property itself. So your suggested change would be certified mail?
And posting of the property.
Okay.
And on the same page, in the tall grass and weeds, weeds shall not include cultivated flowers, vegetables, gardens, trees, or shrubs.
So you'd like to add the word vegetables?
Yes.
Okay.
I think gardens is too general. I have a little bit of concern about the exterior storage, requiring everything to be in a shed or whatever. Even though there's this short-term exterior storage, I think short-term is subjective. And, not everybody can afford to have a shed or a garage to put their lawnmowers and equipment in, and sometimes they have to store it outside. I mean, I think the huge trash cans that we have are as big an eyesore as a lawnmower. And we don't have to put those inside a shed. So I'm a little bit concerned with this particular section. I don't know how you would change it without really rewriting it. Let's see. Then on page 8, about the fences shall be prime painted, sealed, or treated to maintain or prevent deterioration. How does that affect natural-looking fences that you just put up and then you let them weather?
Well, that would come under maintenance. I mean, if it's a natural cedar or redwood fence, is that what you're thinking of?
Well,
that has,
there are a lot- there are
the
a
wood
lot of-
itself is protective in terms of not rotting or deteriorating?
Well, they all rot. I mean, I know that when you buy a fence section at wherever you buy it, and then you put it up, it's supposed to be a natural-looking fence, and you don't seal it or do anything to it. It's just supposed to weather naturally. And I don't know if that would be...
I think the intent of or maintained is to try to have people make sure that they don't put up a fence and then allow it to deteriorate, fall down, posts rot.
Well, then I think you
That
should
kind of
say that
thing.
instead of this, because there's too much in here that's subjective, that it depends on who you are, whether you think their fence is unattractive or not.
So are you suggesting like it would say fences shall be maintained to prevent deterioration and rot or something along those lines? Because that does make more sense to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, I don't know, I think this gets to it better than any sort of explanation could. I mean, weathering, yeah, I mean, things change color, you know, they change, but deterioration is really when it's rotting or falling apart to me. So I don't
So if
think,
it's rotting or falling apart, you're supposed to take it down.
well, you're supposed to maintain
maintain
it
it.
so that it doesn't. I mean, that's really the point, but it's not like you're supposed to keep a cedar fence, you know, brown and not let it weather gray.
And I think that that word maintain covers that, because I was thinking of, my own split rail. We don't put anything on it, but it's definitely maintained.
Yeah, so when one part falls down, you get
Yeah,
another part.
or a car goes through it, yeah.
Well, one possibility was we could change this to say fences shall be maintained to prevent deterioration and to ensure continued structural integrity.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that works really well. Because you don't want to put it in the prime to paint it sealed, because it's not always appropriate.
It says the word or, it doesn't, you don't have to prime paint it.
No, it is or, correct. It's encouraging maintenance, it's suggesting some of the things that might be done, but the operative word there is maintenance. We don't want fences falling down, we don't want their pieces becoming deteriorated so they're no longer functional or present a danger or a problem, so. But I think we could potentially simplify it so that it would say, fences shall be maintained to prevent deterioration and to ensure structural integrity.
So to get back then to exterior storage, this sentence that's in red at the end, is that still, I guess that's still in the new,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
and the sentence before that, or the phrase before that where it says, include as viewed from a public right-of-way or within a neighboring property. So does that mean if your neighbor can see your tools or your lawnmower or your garbage cans or whatever, that then you would possibly get a certified letter or a post?
I think This came out of a work session we had, I think jointly perhaps with the commission and council, where there was concern that someone could decide to put everything behind the front yard, behind the house, and then you could have a rear yard that neighbors would have to live with that contained these things. So this was the public view to include the neighbor was placed in there. The piece in red was designed so that people would not be in a situation where they're doing regular maintenance, they're working on their house, yard, garden, landscaping, they have a permit, and they have tools and equipment that are associated with that. And it's going to be that way for a short term while they're doing this project. You certainly don't want to discourage people from doing the work they need to do to maintain, but there will also be judgment. As you can see from some of the photographs, we have some serious problems where things have been there for a long time and need to be moved out. So we're not looking to ding people, but to have the tools to solve the more egregious problems that may exist here in the community.
Yeah, and I've got to admit, I have the same sort of problem with this section, and I raised it before that Ruth has. I mean, you know, in my case, for example, I mean, I've got a garage that can handle the extension ladder, but if I wanted to put it on the back fence, which is a 7-foot high fence, and 10 feet away is another 7-foot high fence at a right angle, it's behind a garage, but the neighbor, 60 feet away, if they're in the second floor of their building, they could see it, and that would not be allowed. I mean, I know there's going to be judgment involved, but, I look at this and I just really wonder. And also, on lines 250 and 251, where you're talking about short-term exterior storage, I mean, this would completely go against not having lawnmowers out, because you'd use them, once a week or every 5 days in the summer, and you could leave them out the entire time, because that would be for maintenance of the property. So, unlike Ruth, I've got real problems with it. I just don't know what the solution is.
Well, for one thing, I remember the discussion that you talked about, that we had when we had the work session with council, about people wanting to not have their backyard full of things.
Right.
And they're saying, but maybe, maybe that just goes too far, and that we just change it to public view shall include a view from a public right-of-way, and that maybe there's a limit to what we can expect on someone's property.
But you got to be careful not to use subjective words
Yeah,
in there.
Nobody wants to look into their neighbor's yard and see trashed vehicles or old bathtubs or anything like that. But, I mean, this is just terribly general, and
And this was also put in to try to deal with the ongoing forever yard sales, too.
right.
Correct.
And what if you had a lot of patio or garden furniture out in your yard, but people didn't kind of like those things, maybe gnomes or, and so they would say that garden ornament or that chaise lounge in your front yard was not appropriate.
I wouldn't see that, in there.
I guess the question is, we're uncomfortable with some of this language. Do we have alternative language?
Well, one question is whether or not if we took out short term and perhaps modified to say exterior storage of a limited number of tools and equipment. Because that's really what you're talking about, Mr. Lawrence. You're talking about a ladder, a lawnmower, a rake, something like that. What we're trying to go after is people have whole collections of things that haven't moved in years, and they become piles, and they're on the ground, and they may have rats and other things associated with them who are
Mosquitoes.
finding this to be a great place to live. So there is, and we appreciate your concern. We don't want to have someone who's just trying to do what they need to do in the regular maintenance of their property caught up in this. We're trying to solve the kinds of problems you see in those photographs.
Well, I reread the short-term one because we've been looking at it on the one page, but it is pursuant to a permit issued by the City of Falls Church.
Or pursuant.
Or pursuant, you're right, there's an or, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
we all understand the intent. I mean, the basic problem was if you had something right up against a fence and your neighbor climbed up and looked over the fence and could see it, I mean, I don't think limiting it to public view from the front of the house would be good, because then I think you would turn, non-fenced backyards into trash heaps. But I've been thinking about this, and I still haven't been able to come up with a better construction.
No, that's the problem with writing legislation. It's really difficult.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I could certainly, if you start at,
Well, I have some suggested language, maybe this may help. If we eliminate short-term, which is maybe problematic, and said exterior storage of lawn tools, ladders, and equipment used in the periodic seasonal maintenance of structures. Because you're not going to leave your lawnmower and those things out typically
during the winter.
all year long for all the time. You're going to take them in because they'll, suddenly there'll be a lawnmower that doesn't work and a ladder that's deteriorated. And this is what people typically do, is they may have some things out when they're doing that work. We're not trying to discourage that. Our concern is when we have these things that have been there for a long, long time, they continue to be there, and then they begin to collect other things. Pipe that holds mosquitoes and water, construction equipment, tires. There are a lot of things mentioned earlier that are not, lawn equipment.
So if the intent
ladders.
is to take care of things that have been there for a long time, couldn't you do a time period? And then if they came up against the time period and moved it inside, or, got rid of it or whatever, then they would be compliant, and it would accomplish the goal of getting rid of the problem. But it wouldn't,
That was the thought behind short-term. I mentioned seasonal because this kind of work is typically done on a seasonal basis. If you have snow going on, you might have your snow blower out until someone walks off with it, or your shovel if you're doing raking. Many of these things are done on a seasonal basis, depending on the weather and the conditions. So that was my suggestion, Ms. Rogers, was to add the word periodic seasonal maintenance. So that if it is out there for multiple seasons and never moves, we could ask someone, could you please do something about that?
To me, it strikes me that the language is okay because of the process of actually giving the penalty. It says you got to let them know, they get 10 days to rectify it before they're charged. If there's some subjective nature to this, which there, to me, certainly is, you get a notice and you get 10 days and you can say, maybe I need 10. It was unclear to me if you could then request a hearing, how that process worked. If you said, look, this is my lawnmower, what are we talking about? To me, it seems the process gets you out of some of this really defined language stuff.
I frankly don't have any trouble with the short-term exterior, that's just the short-term, particularly with talking about that, exactly what kind it is. Does this anywhere cover those portable storage thingies? I know there's some place in some ordinance somewhere that they can be used, but not on a long-term basis.
This is not designed to deal with those.
Council passed that a while back.
This is not designed to deal with that per se. If they're on public right-of-way, I think you have to have a permit and you pay a fee. The state code allows you to build sheds and storage buildings up to, I think, 200 square feet without permits. So there are a number of things the state lets you do that will allow you to, have places to store this kind of equipment.
Yeah, those pod things, and I think way back in my other life, I think there was a passage of an ordinance covering length of time, while stuff was, houses were being worked on or in the process of moving, or.
Yeah, this is not designed to, this is designed really to address long-term problems properties that we've not been successful in getting them cleaned up, the kinds of conditions you see in the photographs in front of you.
Could I ask a
And,
question?
but I do understand the Commission's concern about not wanting to overreach on this
Right.
and unintentionally hinder people who are simply trying to maintain their property and
Could
their
you
their
explain the
garden.
exterior storage in a couple of these places? I don't see anything. I can see the trash and debris, but the one above it, exterior, I suppose there's something on the right-hand side. And I'm not too sure of the exterior arborage also, and the picture.
Are you looking at pictures?
Yeah. If you're going second row, first and last, where I don't see anything there. That.
On the right-hand side, there is a considerable amount of stuff that has accumulated on the side of that building. This is a small photograph, so it's hard to see it exactly, but
Yeah, so.
you can see just kind of general. The picture below it, I think, is also similar.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
that's also exterior storage. And we also have inoperable vehicles.
I just don't think those are a couple of good examples of, but the rest of it certainly is.
There are many to choose from. This is a very small sample.
Okay, I have another one. Oh, go ahead. Okay, on page 9, under rodent and insect harborage, I think the last sentence, when evidence of an infestation is present, all logs, firewood, etc., shall be stored dry and either upon paved areas or elevated not less than 18 inches above the ground. I think that's a bit high for firewood. I realize when you start it, when an evidence of infestation is present, but doesn't that kind of require you to elevate your firewood 18 inches, just in case?
What line are you talking about?
Line 363
Thank you.
and 364.
I saw that too, but I thought
Well,
since it
this
had
is
to be.
predicated if we've got evidence of an infestation. In other words, we have rats running around, there are traps that are needing to be set, and it's been concluded that the area involved is part of that problem. This is really getting at being able to correct that so that you can begin to address the problem. Because what can happen, you get burrowing underneath, and you can get a whole colony that's kind of living in a protected area because of things above it. This is really becomes operative when one finds this situation to be in evidence.
Because you normally don't store things 18 inches above the ground with wood.
Yeah, but I think part of it is, I mean, by having to move the wood, you find out if there's anything
That's
in the wood
exactly it.
pile, not just underneath, too. But it doesn't imply that, well, actually, or does it? Does it have to stay that way?
Well, it's saying to get it up there, you've got to put traps in, you may need to put in bait, for example, or you need to examine whether they're burrows. This is really designed to, if you want to keep this stuff, it needs to be elevated so that it can be, it's really designed to permit the inspection and extermination process.
So
We certainly would encourage people to get rid of these things. You know, if you're not burning your firewood, storing it for a long period of time just becomes a problem, a variety of problems. Rats, termites, and other kinds of infestations, so.
But when would the people be able to, put it back on the ground?
I think you're referring to line 367, right?
Yes.
Being the owner of a humongous,
Well, to be
Stacks
honest,
of
we
wood.
really don't want any of these things. If a lot of this, you don't want a lot of this stuff above ground, on the ground, because it creates harborage.
Right, and most
This is
people-
really designed to avoid The 18 inches is designed to avoid that problem.
The storage thingies are about this high, or if you put them on the timbers, the
Right.
railroad thingies.
I usually put
Yeah.
mine on cinder.
And, you know, and that's only maybe up 3 or 4 inches. I mean, anything, and all the wood storage racks are no more than 6 inches high. We've got a few of those.
Can I ask, did the 18 inches come from
Somewhere.
the people who deal with the infestation? Is this what they say is necessary for them to be able to tell and put traps in?
Well, I believe that standard is, I'll double check, but I believe that's the standard they're suggesting.
I mean, I guess,
And it could be on a paved area, or if, like I have if you have a deck or something like that, you might have your wood on a rack on a deck. Well, that's, what they're concerned about is having it on the ground where you have burrowing and access to the soil. That's really the concern.
most time firewood, whatever layers on the ground, isn't useful anyway.
Well, exactly. That's a very good observation.
John, it looks like line 358 says you sort of could be interpreted to mean you have to keep it that height. It says, after extermination, proper precautions shall be taken to prevent reinfestation.
Right, and I didn't know if that's
Yeah,
what it was.
I don't know if you can ever
intended to
drop
be.
it down again. My
Well, the
sense
best thing is to get
18
rid of
enough.
this stuff. Most of it, if it's been out and it's been on the ground, it's not, as Chair Teets mentioned, it becomes unusable, and we have a lot of examples of that. Most of the pictures you've seen, things that are being saved or stored on the property are not going to be useful or usable. They simply remain as a problem. So this is, and particularly when harborage is beginning to take place, when you've got that, this is really designed so you can change the condition that produced the harborage.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically, if people have this situation, when you make them pick the stuff up, they're probably going to get rid of it, not go to the trouble of,
Not my wood
building. Yes, well, you're an
got
exception
beautiful
to
wood
most rules.
piles.
Yes.
But the other thing is we've got a lot of logs that still, from a couple trees that we've cut down that we still haven't split yet, and they're definitely on the ground.
Well, this is really designed to say,
Here to defend
if there's
us.
evidence of harborage, if we see rats, if there's a problem.
Linda, you're
getting
okay as long
complaints.
as you don't have rats.
I don't have any rats.
As long as you don't have rats, no one's going to ask you to do
I don't
anything.
have any rats,
Just
but I do have.
don't get rats and you'll be
Really,
fine.
because we've got a wood burning stove. We use a lot of wood. And
Oh, I guess I just.
we've taken down some trees, so we've got a lot of wood.
And of course, it could be, the reference to paving, if you're on a brick pad or a concrete pad or something like that, or a paver pad, that eliminates the digging and the burrowing, and that's, that's the problem.
I'll invite you over.
Just don't get rats.
Our termite inspector doesn't have any problems with any of it. He checks it over once a year.
Well, as long as you keep it away from the house. Ms. Rogers, did you have any more comments?
No, I don't, but, this comment, I can't vote for this because I think there are just too many problems in it, a lot of unintended consequences. I mean, I think the intent of having civil penalties as opposed to a misdemeanor is a good idea. It's a commendable goal, but, I mean, I think this just goes farther than that, so I can't support it.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, did you have more comments?
Yes, and actually a question for Ruth. Would looking at certain sections and trying to come up with new language help, or?
That would be fine, but I
mean, if
I'm
you had
not
to
gonna do
vote
it right
tonight,
this
I
minute.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, so we could think about delaying too.
And we could think about delaying, but we've also made some language changes, but it sounds like there are some additional sections.
And, along with that, Ruth, I don't know if any of this, the language that's in here, is it the same language that's in any other part of the code that's enforced now, or not enforced, but it's there?
Some of it is.
We're trying to develop these to be parallel and consistent with
Right,
other
right.
codes, so it's hard for me to give you an answer of total certainty on that. But generally, as we've looked at our codes, we've tried to make these all consistent.
You
where we
lifted the
can.
language from another part of the code
Shifting them from one
and
place to
put
the
it in a
other.
location,
Yes.
so this
Yes.
may be language that's already in the code, but just put under and togetherness and a grouping.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Lawrence?
He gave us a cheat sheet
Right.
on what was new and what was just sort of moved around.
The rodent and insect harborage is shown on page 2 of that, and that is new code.
That's new, yeah,
But it's a real problem. I mean,
right.
we have West Nile virus, we have people concerned about rats, and we're in small properties close to one another, and if you happen to live next to an area that's got a problem like this, you want a solution.
Yeah,
If
well,
you know, so it's really designed to give us the tool to solve a problem where one exists, not to go after a situation where there's no evidence
Oh,
of
the
that
exterior
problem.
storage is new code.
well, now on
Yes,
on-
that is.
On the rats, I mean, I remember years ago down our street, somebody was complaining about a problem, and they were told that was a Fairfax County Health Department question. I mean, is this now ours? Or are we making?
This is to give us the ability to address a harborage situation. Fairfax County is involved with some of that, but this is, so when there is a problem, it's been noted and we can see evidence of it, we can have the conditions that create the harborage to be remedied. That's what this is about.
So basically, if you guys get complaints from neighbors or even from the homeowner and you come in and you see that there's definitely areas of harborage, you can have them start to correct the issue, but then you probably call Fairfax County in for the traps and the things that have to be put in.
Well,
So it would be a combination.
yes, there would be,
Yeah.
but we might well get, you know, if you have this condition in your property and someone came out and you said, gee, I've got this problem, can you help me? This is the kind of advice that would be given to people, is elevate, put it on a paved area, get rid of it if you can. It's about problem solving, not punishing. And that's really the intent. The fines are something we hope not to have to use, that education, warning letters, and cooperation will solve the problem. That's generally been the track record with these kinds of codes in the state, is that they're helpful and they help solve problems more quickly than the misdemeanor approach.
Ms. Rogers, I know we made a couple text changes. You said there were additional things that you were uncomfortable with. Have you noted all of them? So
Pretty much. I do notice that the inoperable motor vehicles on this memo that we got under that particular section just says it's simplification of existing codes. Does that mean anything in blue, underlined in blue, is just an existing code that has been simplified? And that the only new stuff is in red?
The existing code, if you go into the zoning ordinance, has, it's a very involved process of entering the property, auctioning off vehicles, et cetera. It hasn't been used very much as a result. This is an effort to simplify that and solve the problems. The red that's been added from line 336 down to 351 is consistent with the definition of inoperable vehicles that is in the zoning code. So we've added that here as well, so that it's clear what inoperable vehicles are. So if you go to the definitions of the zoning code, you'll find a similar definition to inoperable vehicles. But the present code in the zoning ordinance is very involves entering property, auctioning off vehicles, and it hasn't been used as a result very often.
Okay, but
So as a result, we have conditions where we have inoperable vehicles that are a problem.
right, so in other words, you've simplified it, but what that means is none of this language is exactly the same as it was before.
The area in red is, in the inoperable vehicles definition is similar to what's in the zoning ordinance definition of inoperable vehicles.
And what about the blue, underlined blue?
The area in blue is what we're trying to solve the problem of.
And is that new?
That is simplified and new simplified from what presently exists in the code, in the
So that's
zoning ordinance.
rewritten, basically.
And it is,
You took that section and rewrote it. Because
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
that this has been used before, because I know neighbors who've had inoperable vehicles removed from their street under the code that we had.
I've got one other question.
Well,
That, whenever we get,
That's fine.
were there sections of this that you thought needed to be rewritten? I'm just trying to get all the points out so we know exactly what we need to.
I was just clarifying that.
Okay, and Ms. Hockenberry?
should we have anything in lines 255 about sidewalks, driveways, et cetera, particularly sidewalks, about snow removal?
we're not, that's a separate thing. We're not
Okay.
addressing that in this instance.
I was just noticing, that one of the things, one of the communications here that we've got. So I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Mr. Lawrence?
Okay. I think, first of all, I think we should push this to next time. So I'm just going to get my concerns out. Because I think this is doable. I just don't think it's doable tonight. I had a question on, well, first of all, on line 103, where you're talking about should not be charged more frequently than once in any 10-day period. I assume you mean 10 calendar days? Because the other reference is calendar days?
Yes.
And then on the next page, on 138, where it talks about after a conviction, if it continues, each shall constitute a separate offense. Each day shall constitute a separate offense. And I was just wondering, does that contradict lines 102 and to 104, where it talks about you can't charge more than once every 10 days? And that's probably a question for John Foster. I mean, one's before a conviction and the other's after, but it just seemed like at the start you're saying once every 10 days, and then after you're convicted you're saying you can get hit every single day. And if that's what's intended, I don't have a problem with it. It just didn't seem clear. I had one general question. This applies to commercial properties as well, right?
Yes.
Was this sent to the chamber?
I don't believe it was referred out to them. It was referred to,
Yeah, I saw the boards and
Yeah.
commissions, and sometimes they're not listed. Okay. On page 8, online, basically it says if you have an inoperable vehicle, it's got to be in a structure, right? Or you can keep one out.
yes, you can have one.
Okay. Does this get to, and maybe it's in the previous section we were talking about, construction equipment, tractors, trucks? Because we had a guy who had his own construction business, and every once in a while he'd just pull a tractor up onto his front lawn and leave it there. And I didn't know if that came into the other section we were talking about, or if it came into this, because it's not inoperable, but it's certainly not, the way it should be.
So your concern is about construction, somebody who's running a construction business and has their equipment.
Right.
And, well,
So that's
that would be kind of a double situation of if they are in fact operating a business in the residential area, they shouldn't be. That would be a different kind of,
yeah, well, more
another
just,
kind of violation.
storing it for whatever reason.
And I think we have other code that says that you're not allowed to park in your front yard. That may also apply to something like that.
You have to be on a paved driveway.
You have to be on a paved
How
driveway.
about a gravel driveway?
I think that's,
What I have in my
we
backyard.
consider that to be a driveway that would meet standards.
And I think when Mr. Lawrence is talking about, he's pulling up into the grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. That's in code already. So there's a different circumstance for that.
How about trailers or boats?
This is designed to try to get rid of, there are good examples in front of you in those pictures, and many of them are the things you're describing. And when they're a problem and you live next door to them, believe me, we're hearing about them. So we're trying, and if you live next to them, you might be those talking to us, but they're very evident as you go around and look. We don't need to go searching for them. They come to us. So we're really trying to, from a efficiency point of view, have the tools to solve the problems that we hear about every day from the community. And that's what this is intended to do, because if you look carefully and you drive around the community, you'll find these problems. And we're not as able to solve them as we could be. And that's why we want to move forward with this and fine tune it so that it works well for the city and the residents.
Okay, just a couple other things on page 9, again, under the rodent. Just a nitpick, the title says harborage, and then you always say infestation otherwise, so I'd sort of pick one and stick with it. Also, I wouldn't say rat, I'd keep rodent, because you've got rat all over the place. And how do we decide when mosquitoes are present? I mean, that seemed incredibly...
Well, it's pretty evident if you go look, you can see them moving around. And if you've been in a yard that has this kind of problem, you'll find out with the local tiger mosquitoes within about 5 minutes of being on the property. So I think it would just be the practical experience of observance, and then if you can observe, you can see them in the water, the larvae.
Oh, so you mean just present in the water, not just...
And you will find them flying around and biting you. So, I mean, having been in some places like that, it's, being one who mosquitoes are attracted to, it's very simple.
Big Chimneys Park.
Yeah, so, but on a serious note, though, I mean, we have examples where people have stored black pipe that fills up with water, and it sits there, and read about the Panama Canal. It's classic. If you don't get rid of these problems, you have insect and mosquitoes, and then you have problems. We have West Nile virus. I think we had one of the first fatalities in the area here. It's serious stuff. So we would use judgment on this, but it's observable. The picture of the pool there, for example, that you have.
Okay, no, I didn't know if it was...
Yeah, I mean, we would use visual inspection.
Common sense.
Yeah, common sense, yes.
Okay. On page 10, paragraph I, I was just curious, that's actually useful, and I was wondering why it wasn't earlier in 623 as well. I mean, it seemed like it should be a repetition of something earlier in a different section, but it wasn't there, so that's just a...
You're talking about notices?
Content of warning and violation notices? Yeah, it just seemed like it should be in 623 too for consistency. And I had one note which I don't understand, so I'll skip that one. On line 504, when it talks about higher fences for a playground, should you specify that is not residential? I mean, someone couldn't say, you know, I've got 3 kids, my backyard is a playground, I'm going to put up a 15-foot fence.
Does it say public? I guess.
It just says, when enclosing a playground.
No, I'm just wondering what word would work there, but public wouldn't work because some schools have it or private.
Yeah, I don't know, just specifying that
Okay.
it's non-residential property or something like that, but...
Yeah.
You're looking for more specificity.
Yeah, I just,
Then-
you know, I'm sure there are people who would like to be able to put up a 12-foot fence in their backyard.
Well, and this also describes tennis courts, and which are recreation. We have, ball fields. This is designed to
Right, yeah, it's
not
like
have those be
all
illegal fences. So,
So, yeah, and then I've got a couple little things that I'll...
well, we could add the word, for example, designated playground or defined playground, or you're really not looking for somebody's
Right, yeah, I mean...
backyard play. It's not play equipment in your backyard.
Right.
It should not be.
Right.
Yes.
I think non-residential probably works better but just because you could have private schools with playgrounds plus public,
Yeah, no, that's true.
yeah, so maybe non-residential would be the best.
Yeah, and I've got a couple other little nits.
The only thing I would say is some of these may be actually zoned residential for residential use. We may have some of our parkland and so forth is on residentially zoned property. In some instances,
okay.
but I understand your intent. I'm suggesting it's a defined designated
I guess
place.
we can get really
It's not
picky and
play
say not
equipment.
R1B, R1.
We're not going to be, we'd not be approving a 10-foot fence around someone's
Right,
play equipment in their backyard.
right,
And, correct.
okay. I just have one comment that wasn't covered by someone already. In the rodent and insect harborage section, when we talk about the mosquitoes, I thought we had added some text there about rain barrels and cisterns, as long as they are using precautions against mosquitoes, that those are fine.
That's true.
That they have the net in or something. We had something in there at one
Right.
point. I think everything else you guys caught. Mr. Schneider, would it be a problem if we continued this to the February 21st meeting? Is this something that we could delay 2 weeks? Because look, we've given you a lot
Yeah.
of different comments, and Mr. Lawrence says he has a few more small things to send you.
We certainly welcome improvements and fine tuning of this. I guess the question would be, we have to sit down and look at the timetable for advertising. This would have to be deferred by council, and second reading would be put out at a date. I'm not certain what that date should be, so we just need to coordinate it so the planning commission can meet and can be advertised properly with the following city council meeting. So Ms. G and I can work on looking at that timetable.
If you don't mind, the intent seems to be to continue, just because of the number of changes we've given you, and it would be a lot easier to see it.
Not a problem. We
Fixed.
we can work on continuing to add those changes, and if you have subsequent changes. Again, our intent is to make this the best ordinance we can so that it solves real problems in the city without creating unintended consequences. So
Right, and that's,
comments that you all made are helpful and appreciated.
Now, when is the council supposed to look at this?
They're scheduled for next week. For this to come back to the commission again, we would need to find a date that we can advertise the meeting for and then have subsequent council hearing.
now if we,
I'd probably put it in March, I would guess, but
right, if we continue, and the council could choose to go ahead and go forward with it, and I think if we don't vote, isn't it de facto that we've that we've approved it, or there's some? We've
well, I
turned it
think
down?
you
That's what I'm trying to
could
remember.
recommend deferral for, along with
Okay.
the deferral, along with recommended changes and additions to the code.
Okay.
And then council can defer it, and we will figure out an appropriate date for it to come back to commission.
So basically, we can do a motion to continue our public meeting and suggest
Well, you could
Or to-
recommend deferral.
deferral to the council.
If we don't have a specific
Right.
date set.
Okay.
Well, but is there any reason not to set, separate from the council, is there not a reason to just set it for our next meeting?
Well, we have to do the advertising in the newspaper, and we've got to figure out the appropriate number of days, and need to sit down with the calendar and take a hard look at that and make sure what works.
So at this point, you'd rather us defer it to a future meeting and let you
To a
guys-
future meeting, and then let us determine what's the best date. We'll bring it back to you as soon as it can be done. We may be able later in the evening to have that date figured out. I just hesitate to give you a date off the top of my head without looking hard at the calendar.
Okay, I guess in our mind,
Yeah.
it should be ready for February 21st. And we just want a chance for you to encompass all the changes we've talked about and the language changes that you suggested, and be able to see the whole document one more time. So if we
Exactly.
can do it on 21st, I think we'd be fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, we can certainly shoot for that, and if that proves not to be practical, we can push it to the next commission meeting.
Okay, if we defer, that doesn't mean we can't have it on the 21st.
No, it just means, really what you'd be saying, I think, is you'd be passing on to the city council, we've looked at this, we have some issues and concerns. Here are some of the suggested changes. We think you should defer this so it can come back to us with those changes intact, and then heard by you at second reading at a meeting following our consideration of it.
Basically, we think it just needs a little bit more time
Yeah,
to
you're
polish up the
going to go
language.
another round, and
Okay.
and certainly other comments you may have following this meeting are welcome.
Okay, at this point, though, I'd like to open it for public comment. I know that we had 2 letters up here on the dais. Did we have any other comments that came in?
I have none, but I can confirm that we cannot advertise legally for the 21st.
Okay,
We don't have enough time. At least 10 calendar days.
calendar
It
days,
has to be
okay.
run twice.
Okay, so it'll probably be maybe our first meeting in March then. Okay. Anyway, do we have any speaker slips?
I have none. Do you want me to summarize the letters you have?
Yes, I was going to ask you to.
Certainly. The first letter is from Kathleen, I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, Niebecker, and she's concerned primarily about fence maintenance, rat harborage, and overall enforcement. Ask that you remember that fences have 2 sides. Fence owners do not always have access to both sides of their fencing, and suggests modifying the proposed ordinance to allow limited access onto adjacent properties for required fence maintenance. On rat control, the city has just, it might be helpful if the city distributed educational pamphlets on the exterior conditions that create food and shelter for rats and how to eliminate them. A common method is the use of roticide. These poisons are a problem if not used responsibly, since non-targeted animals may be poisoned. In addition to accidental poisoning, secondary poisoning from roticides is a danger to the natural predators of rodents, hawks, owls, foxes, and coyotes. Train city inspectors to understand the dangers of roticide use and inform residents of unintended consequences when enforcing this section of the new ordinance. Finally, emphasize the best method of rodent control is prevention, which means eliminating food, water, and shelter sources from the properties. For code enforcement in general, she asks that more proactive and consistent enforcing of all parts of the city code be undertaken rather than relying on complaint-driven enforcement. And her one example of where the city lacks code enforcement is snow and ice removal. You have a second communication from Suzanne Updike. On the section of exterior storage seems to be too draconian. Are we really going to be a community that doesn't allow an extension ladder or overturned canoe along a fence, a lawnmower in the carport, or a bike on a porch? Will people be expected to screen items even from the view of a neighbor's upper floor? People should be able to keep a reasonable amount of functioning outdoor items, for example, compost bins, rain barrels, garden hoses, wheelbarrows, clotheslines, lawn furniture, grills, trampolines, bikes, soccer goals, and even a ladder, without having to screened from the sight of neighbors. The code should clarify that construction materials and equipment are allowed while used for ongoing work on the property. And finally, the section on weeds should be clarified to say that intentional natural areas are permitted.
Thank you. And some of these we went over because we do have language that's changed, that the intentional natural areas will be allowed. And I don't think, from my reading, things like compost bins and garden hoses and lawn furniture would be involved in this. But it's, maybe it's something we should look at the
That's
language one more
correct.
time and make sure that that's really clear. I thought that the other letter had a really good concept, that if we are having a lot more harborage issues, that it might be useful for the city to send some information out, because I don't remember receiving anything in a few years. There was something in one of the environmental newsletters a few years ago, but I haven't seen anything recently. And so if we're having a larger problem, that probably would be a very good idea to do. I guess at this point, can I get a motion to defer this?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that the Planning Commission defer item 8A on our agenda for tonight, an ordinance to amend the property maintenance code until the next earliest possible meeting.
Can I get a?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Can I get a vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Teets?
Yes.
Mr. Wodiska?
Yes.
Ms. Hockenberry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully we'll get to see this in our first meeting in March then. And I think a lot of the changes we talked about really dealt with some of these issues that came in the letters tonight, which was good. And we'll make this a stronger piece. And I really look forward to you having this tool.
We agree, and we appreciate your comments and thoughts, and this will continue to improve, I think, with the addition of some of the commission's comments and others we get from the citizens and the council.
Okay, so can we move on to approval of minutes? Yes.
I move that we approve the minutes of January, what?
Oh,
sorry?
Mr. Lawrence? One change?
Sorry, on line 153, where it says joint work session on January 30th, that was just our work session, wasn't it? It wasn't joint with anybody. So just planning commission work session?
Yes.
Yeah, that was our work session that she
Right.
attended.
Right.
So just at 153, remove joint.
And put in, or, yeah, don't have to put in anything.
Yeah.
On line 196, there's a word that says March. I think it's match. It should be match.
Yeah. Yeah, so on, line 196, change March to match.
I think we should watch all of
March is a nice word. Okay, anything else? Okay, Ms. Rogers?
I move that we approve the minutes as amended. The minutes of January 17th, 2012, as
Second.
amended.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And I think, Mr. Wiziska, you are abstaining?
Standing out.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn, and we'll move to our work session on the CIP?
Move to adjourn.
I need a second?
Second.
Okay, we now adjourn, and we'll move on to the work. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're going to move on to our work session then.